All right, thank you. I like you.
Welcome to our subcommittee meeting on open government. People in the audience, please take a seat. Members, take a seat.
We don't have a quorum.
I thought we do.
Nope.
I thought Kathy Tran. Isn't Kathy Tran a member?
I don't know. I didn't see her up here.
Kathy's here.
Kathy.
She's right here.
We're good? She used to be in her seat. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Just a couple of announcements as we begin our real business today. We have two regularly scheduled meetings, including this one to process subcommittee bills. As was mentioned in the earlier committee, if I grant motions to go by for the day, I cannot ensure that your bill will be heard in the remaining meeting. So just FYI. If you do make a bill, if you make a request to go by, please know that your bill may be left in committee. We have 18 bills to hear in 2 hours. That means approximately 5 minutes for bills. You all have been really great so far in kind of timing yourselves and so forth. If we get behind at all or we begin to take too long, I'm going to use this handy-dandy timer.
Or strike 407.
Strike 407? Yeah, okay. And then today there is one administrative action we want to House Bill 407 has been requested to be stricken from the docket.
Recorded vote.
This is a recorded vote.
Need a motion?
Need a motion?
I move
Second.
to strike.
Open the roll.
Open the roll. Clerk, open the roll, please. Clerk, close the roll. Motion passes 6-0. We're going to hear Delegate Hope's bill first. He has a committee he needs to run.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee. This is House Bill 1078. I do believe that there is an amendment, a line amendment, I believe.
Yes, Madam Chair. On line 19 of the introduced bill, after required period, strike capital A, insert except with regard to contracts for architectural or professional engineering services, comma, little a.
You want to adopt that?
So moved. Second? Yes, a second?
Second.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. House Bill 1078 would allow a public body to include as a factor that will be used in evaluating a competitive proposal the proposer's employment of individuals with disabilities to perform the specifications of the contract. Localities can already include terms and conditions as well as any unique capabilities, specifications, or qualifications they desire and what will be required in their evaluation criteria and numerical scoring system. We just want for localities and public bodies to think of increasing the employment of individuals with disabilities by commercial businesses competing for competitive contracts in the public sector. This issue came up to me from one of my constituents that was working in Fairfax County. They were doing computer recycling. They did a bid with Fairfax County, and the initial bid was through a nonprofit, and that was perfectly acceptable to do that. But then the job became a for-profit job, and then they put it out to competition, and all these people with disabilities lost their jobs. And so we just want to put in the code that this is permissive, and so it's not a requirement, but it's a permissive part of the law that would allow localities to use the preferences of employing persons with disabilities when evaluating these proposals. That's all the bill does.
Questions from the member of the committee? Anyone in the audience to speak in favor of this?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, Karen Tofelsky with the Virginia Association of Community Rehab Programs. It's a great opportunity to help leverage the procurement system in the state and localities to seek to solve some of the high unemployment rates of people with disabilities.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in?
Madam Chairman, I'm Claudia Arco with Fairfax County, and we support the legislation.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone to speak in opposition to the measure? What's your pleasure, committee?
Move to report.
Second.
Second. Clerk, open the roll. Clerk, close the roll. The measure Reports 5-1.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee.
Do we have a?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 884 before you is what I'd like to call a transparency bill, and I'd like first to make the committee to adopt a substitute. All right. Thank you, Madam Chairman. What this bill essentially would do would require that every offer submitting a proposal to a public institution of higher education for any construction project with a total of $5 million or more using a procurement method other than competitive sealed bidding shall include with the submission of disclosure of any contributions in excess of $5,000 that the offer or any affiliated entity or respective officers, directors, managers, members made in the previous 5-year period to the public institution of higher learning. That's essentially what this bill does, Madam Chairman. I have some folks here that I think want to talk, but I believe we got a mark.
Any members of the committee have questions? First?
Yeah.
right.
We have some of the stakeholders, Madam Chairman, said they want to kind of have a meeting and kind of smoke a peace pipe.
Oh, all right.
Okay, and so I'm going to ask the committee to make, have a motion to carry over under Rule 22
All right.
for next year.
So moved.
Second. All right. Is that a recorded vote?
It's a voice vote.
Voice vote. All those in favor of carrying this over?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
All right.
Thank you, Delegate Fowler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee.
Delegate Freitas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. HB 602 is attempting to address a particular issue when parents or legal guardians attempt to get records under a FOIA request from the school system that they're not charged exorbitant amounts when attempting to do so. So what this bill would essentially do is that once a quarter, if someone was requesting electronic files, that they would be able to do that once a quarter for free of charge. And then once a year, they could request physical documents specifically related to the student that is attending the academic institution. And it would just be obviously for those specific scholastic records. And I do have someone that has been very patient, driven quite a ways to be able to speak on behalf of the bill too, as soon as there's any questions from the committee.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes, Delegate Friesen.
Delegate, is there a cost to the localities?
So there hasn't been any sort of fiscal impact statement that's been given to this, but I am sure that if, right now a locality can charge for this particular FOIA request, if they were required to provide at least, free ones once a quarter, that would probably be some sort of cause on the locality.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Delegate Freitas? You have somebody
I do.
speaking.
Thank you very much for your time. And yes, my name is Isaiah Knight. I'm a father of two over at in Bedford County. And this is an incident that occurred with the Bedford County School Division. It started with an incident in November where I submitted a FOIA request asking for emails about my kids that occurred over a period of 8 months. No administrative records, no information about the budget or anything like that, just emails specifically relating to my kids. They said that the request would cost $37,650. Okay. After some pushback and a threat of a mandamus, they were able to come back to a more reasonable estimate of $9,380. A cost I can't afford, and frankly, I don't think a cost that any parent can actually afford. And again, this is just information about my kids. I submitted another request asking for emails about my kids again, and it was an email that I was already made aware of by my son's teacher, and they said that I would have to use a FOIA request in order to be able to get this information. The cost for that, $115. I did pay for that, and it resulted in 14 individual emails. And it didn't even include the email that I was actually asking for, so I had to file a mandamus for that. And only after that did they give me the record that I wanted, after I had to pay about $68-ish in court fees. So, again, the Constitution for Virginia requires the free appropriate education, and charging parents these excessive fees for what should really be simple requests is neither free nor appropriate. And I'm really asking that the committee passes this to make access to kids' information a whole lot easier. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Megan Rye with Coalition for Open Government. Full disclosure, Mr. Knight is on our board of directors, and we do support the bill.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Delegate Freitas, just a couple of questions. Is all of this information available electronically because it was emails, or how did
Yeah,
that-
in this particular case, the records that were requested were emails specifically. And so that's why because we obviously understand that if you got to get a bunch of physical copies, you got to mail the physical copies, that could actually include more costs. So electronic files, we think, should be a little bit easier to both identify and then be able to provide to the parent, and that's why we specifically honed in on the electronic files.
And would this be a local mandate?
Yes, it would, Madam.
If we pass all right. Delegate Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm interested in knowing, was this just in regard to copies of grade reports, or?
It had to do, from what I understand, I don't want to speak for the individual that experienced it. It was specifically for emails referencing the name of his children, and I believe there might have been, and himself and the mother within the email transactions between school parents or between employees of the school system, and specific emails and records with respect to the students.
Thank you.
Delegate Krizak.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially what you're doing is you're just saying the first FOIA request is free.
It would be one FOIA request. The way it's currently written, it would be one FOIA request per quarter, provided it's electronic only, and then you'd have one per year if you wanted a physical copy of something that would be free.
How come this didn't go in FOIA?
We're just hearing it today. Any other questions? Delegate Lethbridge. What? I've gotten the message that if we do pass this, it needs to go up to appropriations.
Okay.
Committee moves by motion. There's a second.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair?
Yes. Report and refer.
I'll second that.
Second, all right.
Okay. All right.
Clerk, open the roll. Motion passes to report and refer HB 602. Vote 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Delegate Larock?
Probably not quite ready. Just have an expert comment as a question.
All right.
If I may, one of the bills that I do have in front of the committee is a bill that was hoping to have some testimony from transportation person from Prince William, and they're tied up at a Board of Supervisors meeting. So he asked for you now is, could we possibly carry that over to the next meeting? I know that puts us in.
We can certainly do that, Delegate Rock, but as we've stated, it doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily heard.
So I forego the guarantee that you would otherwise provide me. So
Is that the one you're waiting for, or is there someone else you're waiting
no,
for?
that's a different one. I think that is number 1377. There are a couple of people here that'd like to cut loose if that's agreeable to move that to the next
Yeah,
meeting.
that's right. 1377.
Thank you very much.
right, who else is here? Yeah.
It's got three.
You want to go? Yeah.
And my
Oh,
vote.
that's good. Delegate Rock, did you want to go ahead with the other bills?
I sure would appreciate that.
All right,
Yeah,
why don't we
thank you.
do that? Which is, yours would you like to look at first?
Actually, was hoping that you might consider just going at this a little bit differently than usual, partly out of interest for the time of the committee. We have two bills that are very similar, and both of them propose using billing tracking software, but in two different applications or two different instances. And I'll explain what they are and just briefly why I've brought the bill, and then probably offer to the committee to turn it over to a consultant for a provider of that kind of software to do the technical explanation.
And would this be House Bill 680 and 685, Delegate LaRock?
That's right, yes. Yeah. So the two different bills are the same in that lines 17 through 33 basically define what billing tracking software is. And the different applications that we're proposing is that in the case of House Bill 680, we're suggesting that this billing tracking software be required in contracts that are 1 year behind schedule and $1 million over budget. So trying to pick up some underperforming contracts there that leave some obvious room for improvement. And then moving to House Bill 685, suggesting that the billing tracking software would be used in contracts in excess of $500,000. And so from beyond that point, pretty much everything is the same. I'll just say, and what I've asked this consultant expert to address is just basically to explain and describe the benefits that relate to accountability and transparency if this software is utilized. To talk a little bit about the study that was passed in the legislature about 24 months ago, and to explain a little bit how that is tracking, and relate that back to the suggestion that we perhaps act on these couple of bills here, address some security concerns, and also talk a little bit about the variety of contractors, or software providers who would offer this product, and perhaps some of the cost savings. So, Madam Chair, if it is agreeable to you, I'll step away, have those explanations presented to the committee, and then answer whatever questions.
Thank you. You have your expert available?
Yep.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mark Birchie. I represent Transparent Business, which is a company that has billing verification software, which would be one of the companies that is in this sector of the marketplace. Chairman Carr and members of the committee, I want to thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. HB 680 and HB 685 are unique bills. They are representative of where the marketplace is going and where industry is right now beginning to adopt. HB 680 adds another tool to the Commonwealth's ability to reduce overbilling in contracts of hours worked on a computer and billed to the state. There are many reasons why a contract would go over budget and fall behind. Everything from change orders to new technology can cause a contract to fall behind and go over budget. This bill, without assigning blame, HB 680 simply gives the Commonwealth another tool to ensure the proper use of taxpayer funds. The bill only kicks in when a contract is a year behind schedule and over $1 million over budget. HB 685 gives a preference to contractors that use billing verification software rather than manual billing, or really basically self-certification billing. It seeks to voluntarily accelerate transition from the self-certification world to automatic verification software. Until recently, this technology did not exist in the marketplace. Nevertheless, billing verification software is a revolutionary development that will transform the management of hours worked on computers and billed to the Commonwealth of Virginia. While there's no mandate on contractors, the Commonwealth could save millions of dollars each year from contracts and see the advantages, including management of subcontractors' billable hours. Want to talk about some of the other things that billing verification software, some of the benefits, et cetera. I'm only going to spend a couple of minutes to go through this really quick.
Thank you.
Okay?
I appreciate just kind of minimizing that because we have a lot of bills to hear. We want to have a fair hearing on yours, so we need to hear all the information in a short amount of time.
I'll go as quick as I possibly can. Until recently, without billing verification, some contractors have taken advantage of the lack of visibility, the lack of automatic verification. One study across all government spending, there's an inherent 6.5% of waste and fraud. Deloitte shutting down fraud, waste, and abuse. Accenture, in a 2013 report, Fraud, Waste, and Abuse in Social Services, found that governments are paying a hefty price in the face of fraud, but citizens are also feeling the effects. The denial of essential services causes a reduction in available funding to citizens, a direct result of fraud. Whistleblowers bring up about 26% of all cases of overbilling, whereas external audits, such as what the state of Virginia can do, only discover about 3% of all cases that are eventually caught. For example, one case, New York City, was overbilled $500 million on a fixed price, $73 million IT contract. Everybody was watching that contract when it was $100 million, over $200 million. The mayor, the city council, IT, but they didn't have anything that would show what was going on. It wasn't until a whistleblower came forward that they found out that it was fraudulent and the company refunded those dollars.
I know it.
Billing verification software works on a basis of three things. In order to prove that you are actually doing the project you say you are, that you're billing to the state, it records the number of mouse events and keystrokes that you do. It does not capture that data. It also takes a screenshot about every 3 minutes. In that process, you know that the person is working at the computer and that you know what project they're actually working on. That's the simplest way, the least invasive way to do type of billing verification software. And that's what all the companies, there's 30 other companies in our market that do it. That's what they use.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor of the bill? Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of 685?
Very quickly. Hello, my name is Alicia Reed. I am a lobbyist with Transparent Business. I just have some testimony to submit to the committee.
Yes?
Yes.
Can you hold it? We've already spent almost more than 4 minutes.
I just want to
Oh, just submit. Oh, you've got some written things. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition to 680, 685?
Afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Joshua Hesslinger from the Virginia Information Technologies Agency. The administration opposes this bill for a number of reasons. In addition to the data security and privacy concerns regarding the invasive data collection techniques that are specifically called out in this statute, we also have concerns that this greatly overestimates the potential savings and, in fact, introduces potential additional costs to agencies because contractors that are mandated to take these additional steps to store this additional data are sure to factor those costs into their prices of doing business and pass them along in that way to agencies. The bill doesn't fit with the way the Commonwealth already has a well-established risk management approach to IT projects. There are scope issues with the bill. A lot of projects are based on deliverables, not based on hours, involve use of state computers for cybersecurity reasons. And so the bill just doesn't fit well with the way the Commonwealth usually does things.
Excuse me, are you referring to 680?
I'm referring to 680. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. The administration also opposes 685. DGS would speak to that one. And then the further concern I'd add is that although this bill is set up as a help to the Commonwealth, if you look at the text of the bill, there is nothing in the text of the bill that gives the Commonwealth any ability to control the software that's used. It, in fact, directs that the contractor has to procure it from a third party. The Commonwealth doesn't have control over that. And it doesn't give the agencies any right in the language of this bill, even as it's imposing this mandate, to access and use the accounting records. So it specifically makes them accounting records of the contractor. So we don't think this bill is a good idea and ask the committee to vote against it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Sandra Gill, DGS. The administration opposes the bill. We have concerns with specifically House Bill 685 that it creates a preference for bidders that are offering bids over $500,000 that track and key and purchase the third-party software to do the reporting.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Christopher West. I'm here representing RVA Tech, the Richmond Technology Council. We are opposed to both 680 and 685 for the reasons stated by both VETA and DGS. And I'd also just add, as Delegate LaRocque said, there is a pilot program already looking at this. Let's wait and see the effectiveness from that program before we make any more decisions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Eric Link representing the Northern Virginia Technology Council. We have approximately 1,000 members that represent about 300,000 employees in the Northern Virginia area. We oppose this legislation. We believe it takes a rather one-dimensional view of the productivity that contractors can offer the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair and members of the committee, Tim Berry for the Virginia Society of CPAs. We speak in opposition to both bills for the reasons already listed.
Thank you. Mr. Delegate LaRocque, last word.
I would beg the chairwoman to allow my expert to address the study very briefly. But I would also kind of footnote those in opposition are the people, in most cases, who would be held to a greater level of accountability by this software. So I don't think you have to read much between the lines to realize that the motivation is for there to be an honor system sort of billing as opposed to precise tracking of the information that would, well, and again, I'll let the expert explain.
Delegate LaRocque, we're just running really tight on time, so I think 1 minute. Set the timer.
I'm going to hit three things real quick. One, on the cost, it's the same as anything like Adobe Acrobat Pro. It's a monthly subscription. All the companies have the same thing. It's about $1 a day. It costs about 25 cents a year to store the data per user. So it's $1 a day per user, 25 cents a year per user. Third-party control. All the control stays within the contractor, and the state can get the data at any time it wants. That's in its audit role, the same as it is today. Nothing is different. They see the data anytime they want to see it. The third thing, on the IT study, they have several areas that they are tracking, except none of them are part of those three: screenshots, mouse events, and keystrokes. None of those things, none of them are being tracked. So they never know whether a person is actually working with their computer. They have a few points that they can get, such as tracking the number of emails, et cetera. But that doesn't really show the person is actually working. And that's it.
Thank you. And the committee moves by, we're going to look at HB 680 first.
I move that we lay it gently on the table.
Second.
Clerk, open the roll. HB 680 is laid gently on the table. A vote of 5 to 1.
Madam Chair, I'm not going away.
Then we have HB 685.
Need a motion?
Need a motion? Committee moves by motion.
Madam Chair? if
Bill
I-
fails for lack of a motion.
Okay. Would it require a motion to ask that this committee consider sending a letter to JCOTS to look further into this and provide a more comprehensive understanding of what the pros and cons are?
Delegate Rock, do you want, you confer with the chairman afterwards, and we will see
Thank you
about
very
getting
much,
the
Madam
letter
Chair. I
sent.
appreciate that. Thanks.
What do we have now? We have Delegate Hudson. That's all right. And then Delegate Lopez.
Let me just say
Delegate.
that, to begin with, thank you, Madam Chair. This room is always so disconcerting because the big head is always staring at me, so I apologize if I get a little freaked out.
Now, Delegate Lopez, I believe we have 3 bills that have been incorporated into yours.
Yes. I have
that-
2 bills before the committee, but 358 is the one you're referring to.
Yes. So House Bill 122, patroned by Delegate Carol Foy, House Bill 1202 by Delegate Tran, and House Bill 1311 have all been incorporated into your HB 308. So I need a motion on that.
Second.
Second, we need a voice vote.
Aye.
All right, thanks. Delegate Lopez. Now, Delegate Tran, do you want to say anything about your portion that's included in your bill that has been incorporated in Delegate Lopez's bill?
Thank you so much for the offer, Madam Chair, but I know we're short on time. I'll leave it to Delegate Lopez.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could move the substitute for the bill? That basically
Second.
this bill, the substitute incorporates some key language from Delegate Tran, Delegate Carol Foy, and Delegate Corey into the final product.
So I have a motion, properly second, voice vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Chairwoman Carr. Project labor agreements, PLAs, sometimes termed community benefit agreements, are customized pre-hire agreements that lay out the terms and conditions of construction projects and often include standards all contractors and subcontractors must meet, incorporating the priorities and values of the community. For example, an agreement can encompass pay scales that provide livable wages and benefits for the workforce, local hiring preferences including veterans, returning citizens, minorities, and women, workforce development including registered apprenticeships, grievance procedures to give workers opportunities to address issues, and safeguards against wage theft, misclassification, and payroll fraud. There is currently no option for Virginia state entities or localities to issue PLAs for public works. This bill restores to all public bodies at the state and local level the option, Madam Chair, of utilizing project labor agreements on their construction projects. Virginia state agencies and localities are currently prohibited from issuing PLAs for public work, despite the fact that PLAs are good for owners, the construction industry, workers, and the taxpayer. This option was taken away by law adopted in 2012, sponsored by former Delegate Barbara Comstock, that outlawed the use of PLAs by public bodies in Virginia. It had been the law of Virginia for decades. That prohibition was based on ideology, I believe, and not on sound fiscal or public policy grounds. PLAs are legal on public work in 25 states. States that have repealed PLAs in recent years have seen disastrous results, from cost overruns on construction to a proliferation of wage theft in the construction industry. Wage theft is rampant in Virginia's construction industry, as reported by JLARC, where they estimated that about 33% of construction industry employers misclassify their workers, which does not count other forms of wage theft, such as non- or underpayment. Wage theft is much more common among unlicensed trades, such as carpenters and day laborers, crafts comprised of predominantly immigrant workers of color. The Virginia Employment Commission estimates that over 400,000 Virginians are victims of wage theft every year. Here's the benefits of a PLA. PLAs increase productivity by ensuring a predictable timeline. Owners and managers are better able to estimate costs for construction with the stability of a PLA, since PLAs standardize otherwise unpredictable work schedules and payment arrangements. Additionally, guarantees of no strikes or lockouts, which are standard in PLAs, are a benefit to owners and developers that seek to prevent unexpected delays. PLAs raise wages. PLAs ensure that everyone on a construction project gets paid regularly and at the area standard rate, which prevents unscrupulous contractors from underbidding local competition. And PLAs promote high-quality apprenticeship programs. PLAs outline clear guidelines around apprenticeships and ensure that contractors and subcontractors performing work are participants in state and federally registered apprenticeship programs. PLAs also, this is very important, help SWAM businesses, small women and minority-owned businesses in Virginia. They oftentimes include specific carve-outs for SWAM businesses, even creating programs that help SWAM businesses grow and bid for more work.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. You're doing a great job. Anyway, you can kind of wrap it up
All right,
soon.
I'll wrap it up. Very quickly, they also do not affect construction costs. They're good for public safety, has been made very clear over the years. They promote local hiring and allowing the Commonwealth, local governments or institutions of higher education to decide for each particular project whether it's in the best in the interest of the public to utilize a PLA will allow Virginians to benefit from the potential improvements in quality, value, and safety that PLAs can offer.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Questions from members of the council? Anyone in the audience to speak in favor of this PLA?
Madam Chair, committee, that was beautifully said, by the way, Dylan. That was really well done. Took everything I was going to say to you. They are stabilizing agreements in a world of workforce development, which we need in the state of Virginia. This is a real workforce development bill. Virginia State Building Construction Trades Committee, Council, supports this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a brief handout.
All right, thank you. And then, and I would ask those that are in favor, want to testify in favor, if you probably limit your comments, don't repeat, because we can see that.
I certainly will try not to repeat that elegant opening that you had. I'm Fred Cotting. I'm in Fairfax, Virginia. I'm here on behalf of the National Electrical Contractors Association, the Sheet Metal Contractors Association, Mechanical Contractors Association. They have projects throughout and members throughout the Commonwealth. Personally, we represent over 1,000 different contractors, primarily subcontractors. They support HB 358. They include the trustees who serve on pension funds. They provide health and welfare coverage for their employees. Misclassification, I won't go into any further. You heard that eloquently spoken.
Thank you.
I want to add just one point. We had a project agreement on the Silver Line, Phase 1. That project came in fairly well, little hiccups. Look at Phase 2 of the Silver Line. That legislation barring project labor agreements took project labor agreements away from Phase 2. Phase 2 is so far behind schedule. They have safety concerns. They have so many problems out there. Who knows when Phase 2 is going to be completed? Thank you very much.
And let me ask, is there anyone in opposition to this House Bill 358? All right, thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'm Claudia Arco with Fairfax County, and we support this local option authority.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Greg Ackerman, representing the Carpenters Union. We support this bill.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Don Slayman, IBEW Local 26. We support the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Jason Asher with the Mid-Atlantic Pipe Trades. I represent the United Association of Plumbers and Steamfitters, and we support this bill.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Charles Skelly, IBEW Local 666. We're here in the local area. We'll be wiring the new General Assembly building. We support this bill.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor of HB 358? Anyone in opposition?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Eric Link, representing the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance, we're the road builders. We don't necessarily agree with Delegate Lopez's interpretation of the code. Our reading of the code is the current law does not prohibit contractors from voluntarily entering into PLAs. The law is neutral, and recognizing that we recognize that sometimes PLAs are appropriate and other times they're not appropriate. A couple of things to point out to you, that the legislation would allow state agencies and local governments to mandate bidders, offerors, contractors to enter into project labor agreements with labor organizations on the same related public works projects. We have concerns that this situation could create undue political pressure on the entity procuring the services in question. Going specifically to highway construction, some Virginia highway contractors, particularly those in our more rural areas, have little or no experience dealing with PLAs. In the past 20 years, including the last 9 years when this statute has been the law in Virginia, that is the current statute, VDOT and the industry's on-time and on-budget performance for the delivery of highway projects has increased significantly. I would wrap it up by saying that the current law has worked effectively and we don't see any need to change it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, Preston Bryant, on behalf of the Associated General Contractors of Virginia. We represent about 600 construction companies across the state. To be clear, AGC supports both union and non-union or open shop companies. AGC generally opposes preferential procurement. I want to just advise you that 98% of Virginia contractors are not in a union. 97% of Virginia's construction workers are not subject to or part of a collective bargaining agreement. Our concern is, and we would agree that the current law interpreted should be neutral. Our concern is if, because we have no history to speak of in Virginia with PLAs, our Virginia contractors are going to be very disadvantaged when other perhaps out-of-state contractors or bigger national and international contractors come in who have deep experience with PLAs. So we would encourage you to not support the bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Kalb. I'm the Vice President of the National Right to Work Committee, and on behalf of the 97% of Virginia construction workers who choose not to join a union and the taxpayers of the state, I'm here to testify against this bill. Just plain wrong for workers to be forced under union monopoly control as a condition of working on public projects. Virginia law currently protects the rights of non-union workers, but if this legislation passes, workers will be forced into union ranks in order to work on public works projects. Open or merit shop contractors seeking to bid on newly regulated projects will be forced to obey restrictive union work rules, job classification, or arbitration procedures. Commonwealth would be telling contractors they must force union boss representation on their employees if they, even if they're the most qualified and the lowest bidder. These discriminatory practices result in workers having to go through a union hiring hall just to have a job. Union-only PLAs won't do anything to ensure these projects are done more quickly, cheaper, or more efficiently. If anything, the reverse is true. Studies of union-only project labor agreements confirm they increase taxpayer expenses by at least 20%. And the no-strike provision on a San Francisco airport PLA didn't deter union bosses from ordering carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and painters out on strike, significantly increasing the project's price tag. Taxpayers are forced to pay more for public construction, and individual workers are forced under union monopoly control. Both of those reasons are sufficient in and of themselves to kill this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler Minnick from the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We're opposed to the bill.
Anyone else to speak in opposition?
Yes, I'm Jack Dyer. I'm president of Virginia Contractors Procurement Alliance, and actually I'm a certified small business general contractor that does a lot of public work. This will add a huge amount of cost to those projects and to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor or in opposition? Delegate Lopez, you have the last word.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, just a moment.
I do have a question for the patron. So you just heard the testimony that 97% of our construction workers in Virginia do not belong to a union. So does this bill not tell the 97% to get lost?
No, it's an option. Right now, this was the law of the land before 2012 in Virginia. It's an option for local municipalities, local counties, local cities, or state agencies to if they feel it's in the best interest of the project to have a PLA. It's not doing anything along those lines. And piggybacking on that, Madam Chair, we have a history, as I said, before 2012 of having PLAs in place. When people say that it's not good for business, many businesses actually prefer PLAs because of the stability they provide. They help law-abiding businesses compete against businesses that cut corners and fail to play by the rules. And PLAs are really common around the country. In fact, many Fortune 500 companies use it, including Toyota and Walmart. And then when people say that it leads to higher costs for construction, the truth is that studies show that PLAs have a negligible effect on the cost of construction as a result of the increased productivity and avoidance of change orders that result from attracting high-quality contractors. Studies also show that an increase in construction costs do not take into account inflation, varying regional construction costs, and change orders. Also, it's very important to remember that as a part of a lot of these PLAs, in fact, most of these PLAs, you can agree upon no work stoppages and no strikes. And so, once again, these are options. We're simply giving counties and the state government options to do this. And
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Delegate Krizek.
Sure.
Delegate, thank you for your strong testimony. I just want to correct the record, and we just had testimony. We heard that Silverline Phase 1 with a PLA was very successful. And we all know what's happening now with Phase 2. We don't even know when that's going to finally end. So I'm going to make a motion to report this bill. Thank you.
One thing I might add also, with regard to the Silverline, Phase 1 came in on time and on budget, and without a single worksite death or lost time due to accidents because workers were skilled and well-trained.
Thank you.
All right? And then...
we've had a
Just ask
motion and report.
Delegate Tran, can we come have your vote?
There we go. I thought Delegate Tran
Clerk
was
would
here.
open the roll, please. The bill reports 4-3.
Thank you very much,
Close the
ma'am.
roll.
Second bill?
Yes, Delegate Lopez, you have 359.
Thank you very much.
And if you can really concise,
I will
because we've
make it
got a
very quick,
lot
very
to do
quick.
here.
One small line amendment, sir.
Delegate Lopez?
Thank you, ma'am. Best value procurement for public works. It's a procurement standard that expands the criteria for selecting a contractor for state-funded construction projects.
Hold on just a moment, please.
Sorry, I just want to move the amendment. Yeah.
Yes, move the amendment.
Madam Chair, on line 29 of the introduced bill, after or insert non-transportation related.
Move the amendment.
So
Second.
moved.
All in favor? All right.
Thank you. In Virginia, ma'am, current law allows public bodies to consider best value concepts when procuring goods and non-professional services. However, state code prohibits public bodies from using best value concepts in construction or professional services. Rather, public bodies must use lowest bid procurement standards for these projects, often resulting in lower quality work, which leads to cost overruns and to fixed problems and higher total costs of the project. Case in point, Phase 2 of the Silverline. In lowest bid procurement, there is a race to the bottom, starting with wages and benefits. Best value procurement would prevent wage theft by ensuring that contractors and subcontractors meet responsible standards before being eligible to bid on construction jobs. I would suggest, ma'am, that this legislation would permit public bodies to consider best value concepts when procuring construction services. Under current law, as I stated, public bodies may consider best value concepts only when procuring goods and service and non-professional services. I think that should change now to construction as well. It would save the state money and actually improve overall construction and timeliness.
Thank you. Questions from members of the committee?
Delegate, my understanding is...
Delegate Krizek?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for that. My understanding that with best value, they can consider such factors as past history,
Yes.
safety records, things like cost overruns, and so this is a very strong. Really, this allows the jurisdictions to use this procurement tool. It's a strong tool for quality control measures. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Anyone to speak in favor of this measure?
Short sentences.
Short. Well, again, we need,
Yes, ma'am.
you know,
Building
we're.
trades, Virginia, we support this.
All right.
Madam Chair, Greg Ackerman with the Carpenters Union. We support this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Jason Asher with the Mid-Atlantic Pipe Trades. We support this bill.
Okay. Anyone else?
Don Slayman, Electricians Local 26. We support the bill. Thank you.
IBEW Electrical Workers 666, we support this bill.
Right. I'd also, if we have someone from DGS here, do you have any clarification or any education you can provide us for this?
Mrs. Chair, member of the committee, Sandra Gill, DGS. The administration has no position on this bill. Currently, construction services is procured through an invitation for bid, except for as provided in 43.1, which allows for construction management and design build, which takes in consideration the best value concepts at that time.
Thank you. Anyone to speak in opposition to HB 359?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Preston Bryant on behalf of the Associated General Contractors and their 600 members. We don't oppose best value bills per se. We prefer best value bills that have a fair amount of specificity in them. This one is wholly undefined in terms of what best value means. There are other bills that do provide some specificity and definition, such things as past history. What does that mean? Cost overruns. As you know, cost overruns can be subject to any number of factors, and it may not be the general contractor's fault. There could have been a bunch of change orders to the architect. Some require performance ratings. Well, performance ratings by whom? And how vetted are those performance ratings, and where do they come from? And so this bill is wholly undefined. It leaves it wide open. There are other bills that do try to get more specific, and we are much more open to those. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Matt Bedke with the Virginia Contractor Procurement Alliance. I couldn't agree more. There's nothing to this bill. There's like a couple words in it. It needs to have a series of regulations and other things that go with it to show how it's used. We've just been through a long fight with construction management where we put something in the code without having a healthy body of knowledge behind it and thought put into it. And it's taken 6 years for us to come back and figure out what construction management means and how to properly use it. This isn't the way to do things.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak?
Jack Dyer, Contractor Procurement Alliance. The code specifically states that competitive sealed bid is the method for procurement in the Commonwealth, and that unless there's special exceptional reasons to go otherwise, and using alternative procurement, which entertain concepts of best value. Anytime you eliminate or curtail competition, you increase cost. And that's what will happen with this introduction of this. You take a system that basically you have a low bid price, you have a 100% payment performance bond that guarantees performance and payment of materials on the project. In essence, you basically have someone backing the general contractor that's going to build the building for you, that sets the standard, that says basically I'm qualified to do the work. And you do it on a competitive sealed bid, which is a low bid. You get rid of that and you go to a competitive negotiation situation that is quantifiable and subjective on who the low bidder is going to get to work.
Thank you. Delegate Lopez, you have the last word, if you can do it in 30 seconds.
All right, well, I would just disagree wholeheartedly. I think quite the opposite. Low bid contracts, as I had mentioned before, are regarding procurement sometimes, especially with the larger projects, can be a race to the bottom, starting with wages and benefits. If you actually want to save the Commonwealth money over time, as has been the case with several contracts just in recent years, like Phase 2 of the Silver Line, and also I have one right here. It's actually fairly prominent. There goes my 30 seconds, but here we go. It's the Springfield Interchange. Originally, it was a $200 million project. It wound up costing taxpayers nearly 300% more. 5 workers died during construction. Only legal action against the contractor gave it a chance of finishing on time. This was actually done when we were without PLAs.
Thank you. Is there an amendment? Do we have an amendment?
Oh, yes, there was a second amendment as well.
Yes, Madam Chair, I apologize for that. On line 30, after professionals, insert or transportation-related construction. So that sentence should read as a whole, public bodies may consider information concerning what is sought to be procured and what is offered. Hold on. Public bodies may consider, I obviously cannot read sideways, may consider information concerning, hold up.
Bad copy.
Yeah, I've written all over this. I apologize. Public bodies may consider best value concepts when procuring goods and non-professional or non-transportation related construction services, but not professional or transportation related construction services.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
All right, move the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Delegate Miyares.
A question for the patron. Permission to ask a question of the patron?
Yes.
So, Delegate Lopez, you made a lot of promises to this committee that this is going to, both HB 358 and 359 are going to save the taxpayer dollars. Will you make a commitment that within 5 years, if the data shows it does not save the taxpayer dollars, you'll be back as a private citizen or as a delegate to advocate for the repeal?
Why 5 years?
I'd like to see the data point. 3 years. We commit to being back here in 3 years.
You and I can talk offline about that, but yeah, this is arbitrary, and you know it as well.
Delegate Lopez.
Done with the questions, Madam Chairman.
What else?
What a silly question.
Committee moves by motion.
Second.
Clerk will open the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The bill is defeated 4-3. Clerk will close the roll. I told him it was.
Delegate Hudson's here.
Delegate Hudson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. In light of the recent testimony calling for clarification to the definition of best value, I am presenting to you a bill that does just that. This bill clarifies the portion of the Virginia Public Procurement Act which defines best value to make clear that that can include labor practices. Under current state code, the Act specifies that a public body shall select the offerer which has made the best proposal and provides the best value, where best value is defined as the overall combination of quality, price, and various elements of required services that in total are optimal relative to a public body's needs. This bill clarifies that the circumstances under which goods are produced or services are rendered are an aspect of quality, that such elements may include, but are not limited to, minimum employee wages or the specific labor practices agreed to by the offerer. And I have a line amendment that should be going around where it says responsive bidder. It should instead say offerer. The Attorney General's office clarified for that, thus embedding them.
Move the amendment. Yeah.
Madam Chair, on line 26, after the strike responsive bidder and insert potential offeror.
Thank you. Here's the problem we're trying to solve. Public bodies routinely set minimum wage and benefit standards for their direct employees, but the current act is ambiguous about whether they can do that for subcontractors as well. So think about a large public hospital system which has a minimum wage for all of its employees, but contracts out its dining and custodial services. They have a small section of their employee base which is not meeting the same standards. So this will make it easier for the public body to just set those floors for all of their workers, and then in requesting bids for public procurement, make clear that all of the offerers would have to meet those standards as well. There's great motivation for this. The bill clarifies that how employers compensate workers does affect the quality of the services they render and the goods they produce. I'm speaking now with my labor economist hat on. Higher wages can help retain workers and boost productivity on the job. So there's substantial evidence to indicate, as Delegate Lopez offered, that this actually does increase the quality of the goods you produce and therefore the value of the goods that you're procuring. The bill is permissive. It allows public bodies to set these standards, but does not require it. So nothing in the bill would disrupt existing procurement contracts that are based solely on price, like sealed bid auctions. This simply allows large public employers to treat all of their workers equally, regardless of whether they hire out for them or have them in-house.
Thank you. I think we need to move the amendment.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Questions from the committee members? Anyone to speak in favor of HB 1488? Step up. Anybody else? Get in line so we don't waste time.
So, Subcommittee Chair Carr and members of the subcommittee, SEIU requests that you vote in favor of House Bill 1488. This bill gives our public bodies...
Identify yourself, please.
I'm Enrique Calvo with SEIU Local 32BJ. Thank you for the reminder. This bill gives our public bodies the tools to ensure that best value in procurement is achieved by favoring companies that adhere to high employment standards. While we believe the consideration of these standards is consistent with best value under current law, the amendments contained in House Bill 1488 will serve as an important clarification for public bodies. There is extensive research that demonstrates that higher wages can boost employee performance, morale, and customer service. Further, higher wages are shown to improve workforce retention, which in turn reduces expenses associated with hiring and retaining. It has been shown that these turnover costs can equate to 20% of a worker's salary, representing a significant inefficiency in the context of publicly contracted services. So SEIU is a union of about 2 million members in healthcare, public sector, and property services. And in Virginia, SEIU members are represented by SEIU Virginia 512 and my local 32BJ. So we strongly endorse the bill.
Thank you. And I would ask the other
Can I leave,
people to step forward. Yes.
some?
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Madam Chair, Bill and Trades, Jason Parker, we support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Jason Asher with the Pipe Trades, we support this.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Don Slayman, Electricians, we support the bill. Thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, Electrician 666, we support the bill.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Brian Layton, Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council, Carpenters, we support the bill.
Thank you. Anyone else in support of the bill? Anyone to speak in opposition to 1488?
Madam Chair, Preston Bryan on behalf of AGC and its 600 members. Again, we don't oppose best value bills per se. More specifically defined, as some other bills are, which offer a scoring system, a percentage of weighted criteria or a specific numerical scoring system is much preferred. This bill also has including but not limited to language, which is almost as good as undefined. What else can be put in there that the proposer may not know what he or she is being scored on. Contractors generally, if they are to lose a project, they want to know why and look at scoring. If they are to win a project, they want to know why and what they can accentuate. And when you get into really subjective criteria like this, and if such a project is contested, an award is contested, much less litigated, it's really in no one's best interest for it to be quite this subjective, so we would oppose the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm going to get a timeshare up here. Eric Link, representing the VCTA again. I appreciate the conversations I've had with Delegate Hudson about her legislation, and we also appreciate the fact that it's permissive. Nevertheless, we stand here opposing it this afternoon. I want to echo the comments of Preston Bryant and say that what is currently for road building a very objective process in terms of the low bid wins among pre-qualified bidders would be could potentially be stood in its head with subjective criteria. Thank you very much.
You.
Madam Chairman, Matt Benke again with the Virginia Contractor Procurement Alliance. I would just say that competition, we all know, usually brings the best value, especially for most of the projects, and I would encourage you to think about that.
All right, fine.
I support opposition to this bill for the same reasons.
All right, thank you. And DGS, do we have someone from DGS who can maybe give us some clarification on this?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Sandra Gill, someone's binder. Oh, thank you, ma'am. This is, again, expanding the definition of best value. The amendment does clarify that it is for proposals, and the administration has no position on the bill.
Thank you. All right.
I'm still trying to steal.
Delegate Hudson, you have the last word, if you can make it in 30 seconds.
Sure. The two last pieces that I would just emphasize is that this is a permissive clarification, so it would not disrupt any existing practices, and the existing best value language is actually broad, and this clarifies that one of the elements of quality are the conditions of the workers.
Thank you. All right. Committee moves by motion.
I move to report.
Second.
Clerk will open the roll. The measure fails to report, 3 to 4. 1488, clerk will close the roll. Sickles. Delegate Sickles. What? The driver's license bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My bill is a little bit sounding opposite of what you've heard here. I'd like to just tell the committee that I work for a construction contractor. We work all over the United States and in other countries, and I'm familiar with procurement issues and procurement. I'm not an expert, but I'm familiar with procurement issues and what procurement manuals typically say. And I've heard a lot of things today that are consistent and inconsistent with what I have come to know over time. I think most procurement manuals would tell you, if you have a simple project and that you have good engineering where the plans and specs are understandable by everybody reading what is going to be bid upon, you do a sealed bid and you get the lowest price. A lot of the contracts that we deal with in the public infrastructure area, non-building construction, it gets very complex. There's a lot of risk in the projects, and best value concepts are used most often and most frequently. But if the project's easily understandable and small, they should not really be put out that way. So the worst, this has been mentioned several times, but the worst procurement decision that's been made in our lifetime was the one where we switched contractors on phase 2, going from Bechtel's job. Everything went relatively well, on time, to the second contract where they changed contractors on a $5 billion total project for $14 million low bid. That is a case they shouldn't. I don't know what our procurement policies that drove that decision, but it was just an outrageous decision. It's going to cost us time and millions of dollars over time. And so regardless of whether it's a PLA or non-PLA, whoever made that decision to switch contractors in the middle of the project for $14 million on a several billion-dollar project, it was turned out to be a huge mistake. But this bill before you today is for our smaller contractors that bid on projects that you can understand. And it is also interesting to me that people say we don't have best value contracting now, because the group of contractors that I'm trying to help with this legislation has been facing every single projects that our colleges and universities put out, even lower dollar ones, have been put out construction manager at risk or best value, in where most procurement manuals would tell you that's not the best way to do it. So working with the administration, there used to be a $10 million cap on projects in their regulation, that if it was below $10 million, it had to go sealed bid. That number had not been changed in many, many years. So the administration applied inflation factors, construction cost indices to it, and the number they came up with was 26 million. In this bill, it would be referred to as the threshold, project cost threshold, on line 31, established by the procedures adopted by the Secretary of Administration. So this bill is pretty simple. It strikes line 28 and 29, where the project costs. This is okay. That what I was just talking about applies statewide. Do you have there's a substitute? I'm reading from the substitute. I'm sorry. Can you pass out the substitute?
We need to move the substitute.
So,
All in favor?
yes.
Thank you.
So the administration on statewide contracts in their regulation raised the $10 million to $26 million. That's in regulation, but in the code was this $10 million for local public bodies, as you see in D on line 26. So all this bill does is raise the local public bodies up to the same as the state, and that would be able to rise and fall with inflation factors. And right now it's at $26 million. So basically all this does is set the local threshold the same as the state threshold.
Good.
And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Dylan?
Why didn't you put 26 million in here instead of referring back, where it's kind of confusing? Because I wouldn't have known it unless you'd have told me.
That's true, yeah. Well, the 26 million statewide wasn't in the code to begin with. Only the 10 million was. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
So we could put 26 million in there, but I'm hoping that you'll agree that this number can move with inflation in the future and not have to come back, and the department is competent to move whatever the number would be based on construction price indices in the future.
Delegate Knight, anyone else? Any other? Yeah, let me hear some more. Delegate Sickles, anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor of this?
Matt Bentke with the Virginia Contractor Procurement Alliance. This is the exception to the rule, is that this allows for best value. Construction management allows a body, a school or entity to use things like a very large project, a historical project, or a complex project. And they can pick and choose the things that they use to pick the guy. So it's a qualitative procurement. I can't thank Delegate Sickles enough for all of his hard work. He's been working on this issue for us for 2 years. As you all know, over the past 9 years, 8 contractors have gotten just about all the work in higher ed, and 2 contractors have gotten a third of all work. And it's because of qualitative procurements. This is going to help narrow it down so that they're going to be more competitive procurements. So, Delegate Sickles, thank you, and I want to thank DGS, Sandra, for all their hard work as well.
All right, anyone else in speaking in favor?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, again, I'm Jack Dyer. I'm owner of a contractor, small business. Construction management is good for some projects that are extremely large or significantly complex. But when a project should be competitive sealed bid, it can cost taxpayers millions. This bill will help better define, standardize the use of construction management at all levels of the government. The bill represents the years of work with a lot of people. I'd like to thank Delegate Sickles for working with us over the past two years. Coming together with this.
Thank you.
And thanks for the Governor's Office for working with us, and DGS and Secretary of Administration.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor?
Yes.
All right. Anyone in opposition? If you can identify yourself, please.
Sure. Chair Carr, members of the committee, I'm Richard Thomas with the Design Build Institute of America. We have over 300 members in the Commonwealth. We oppose this bill because it's not based on research. It's not based really on anything, and it lumps a lot CMAR and Design Build together. We've heard a lot of complaints that there's a lack of competition on CMAR. We've never heard that with Design Build. We've heard about cost overruns. Design build is the most commonly used project delivery in America and in the Commonwealth, and it's also proven to be the most cost-effective, the fastest, and highest quality in every measure. This bill lumps CMAR and construction and design build together. It also makes the assumption that there's no benefits to using design build on small projects. Categorically false. In fact, all the research been done. Penn State just did a research study this spring and all the trends are going towards smaller design build projects. And a lot of that is because local governments, cities and counties have smaller projects.
Thank you. Can you wrap it up now?
Absolutely. The thing is it's not just price, it's also innovation and quality. And by every measure, design build has outperformed all the other delivery methods. To take this, to narrow the definition, to take this tool away from local governments is going in the wrong direction.
Thank you.
Don't forget this.
Did DGS have anything to say about this? Any clarification, Dan?
Madam Chair, Sandra Gill, DGS. I am not completely sure that the previous gentleman's statement was correct. I believe the threshold is strictly tied to CM. So just for clarification.
Thank you. All right, any other comments questions from the committee? Committee moves by motion. Second? Clerk will open the roll. Bill reports 450, 890, 5 to 1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When do I need to come back to full committee on this one, or do I need to come back?
Next Thursday.
What's today? A week from tomorrow?
No, Thursday afternoon.
Okay, this is Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yeah. Delegate Murphy needs to get to another committee.
I'm going to do it here. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute to HB 452. You have it. Thank you.
Clerk, want to tell us about the amendment? Read it.
Make some technical changes.
All right. Move this.
Moves this up.
Substitute has been moved. Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
So this makes some technical changes?
Yes.
All right, Delegate Murphy, tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This Virginia Public Procurement Act increases the small purchases exemption from $100,000 to $200,000 under the Virginia Public Procurement Act for single or term contracts for goods and services. This was brought to me by the Loudoun County supervisors, and they say it's important because it will help them increase government efficiency, save us taxpayer money, and still provide for competition.
Right. Any questions from the committee members? Anyone in the audience to speak in favor of Delegate Murphy's 452?
Bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Sterling Reeves with Hefty, Wiley & Gore, representing Loudoun County. And as you know, state law requirements for formal public procurement are extensive, and the process can be time-consuming and expensive, both for the public body and for the bidders. That's necessary and appropriate for large contracts, but for small contracts, that expense can be disproportionate to the value received. So the informal processes that are permitted for small purchases can be much more effective and time-saving, money-saving for public bodies and for the contractors. This limit currently of $100,000 was set nearly 10 years ago, just as we were coming out of the Great Recession. $100,000 contract 10 years ago would be much closer to $200,000 today, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor?
Madam Chair, Jeff Gore on behalf of the Virginia Association of Governmental Purchasing, 1,000 procurement professionals, state and local level around the Commonwealth, in support of the bill. This is good measure to save taxpayer dollars and improve efficiency for these small contracts.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition of 452? DGS?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Sandra Gill, DGS. We want to thank Delegate Murphy for carrying an amendment that clarifies the sourcing will happen on the electronic website known as EVA. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee moves by motion.
I move to report.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, please record your vote on the electronic medium. 452 reports 6-0. Clerk will close the roll.
No, will you still have?
She'll still have a quorum.
Okay, I've got to go to transportation. Thank you so much.
Delegate Carol Foy, is she here?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. I have House Bill 437, disposition of surplus materials. Before I get started, Madam Chair, I would like to move an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
All right. While that's being passed out, motion to move the second. All right. All in favor? All right.
Thank you. And speaking to the substitute, Madam Chair, this substitute reflects the recommendations given forth by the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. What it does is that it strike the need to adopt regulations to implement a program to certify that such persons hold a military spouse-owned business, and it expands the legal jurisprudence to include active military-owned businesses. So last session, we empower small businesses owned by service-disabled veterans and veteran service organizations by creating opportunities to purchase the capital needed to succeed in the workforce. House Bill 437 builds on that existing legal jurisprudence by permitting surplus materials to be sold prior to public sale or auction to active military-owned businesses and military spouse-owned businesses. Military spouse-owned business is defined as a business concern that is at least 51% owned by one or more military spouses, or in the case of a corporation, partnership, or limited liability company, or 84 other entities, at least 51% of the equity ownership interest in the corporation. So what this bill seeks to do is to allow and give an opportunity to military spouse-owned businesses to have access to resources that they other would not have, such as computers and desks and chairs, in order to be able to start or actively pursue their entrepreneurial endeavors. Typically, with the limited with the limited pay that a lot of our veterans and active duty members receive, this is something that we think can give them a leg up in trying to start their own business, to have access to these type of resources. So it's my request here that we pass we report the bill.
Delegate Knight.
Delegate, I see on here, I understand what you're trying to do, and I know that I've actually bought some things on a government auction before, and if it comes up on a government auction and I was to bid $1,000 for something, how would you know what price to put on it for the entity that you're talking about here?
So the price, I believe, is determined by whoever is going to put it up for auction. What this bill does is make it available and open to military spouses before it goes to auction. So whoever puts it up for auction, they will decide the price that it will cost, or if they even want to give it to the business for free. Oftentimes that happens also.
Delegate Knight?
I understand what you're saying. Sometimes I've seen things go up here that I thought were going to go for $1,000. It went for $10,000 and vice versa. So that's why sometimes they put it up for an auction. I understand what you're trying to do, but if someone put a price tag on it, I got it, but it tends to be a little subjective, I think, on the auction thing. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Any other questions from the committee? Anyone to speak in favor of 437? Anyone to speak in opposition? Committee moves by motion.
I move we report.
Second. Clerk will open the roll. HB 437 reports 5-0. Clerk will close the roll and reports with the substitute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the subcommittee.
All right, I think we have several members. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee.
Thank you. Delegate Carr.
1099 is before us. 1099 is an agency bill at the request of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. This bill would extend an exemption to rail projects relating to requirements for both OAG and DGS to review high-risk contracts before an agency may execute. Currently, VDOT is exempt from this review requirement for road project construction and design. This bill extends the exemption to DRPT. The bill enables DRPT to streamline the delivery of new construction and design needs related to the $3.7 billion transformational rail agreement with CSX, which includes the $1.9 billion design and construction of a new long bridge that will benefit all rail passengers in the Commonwealth. Finally, the bill raises DRPT's $2 million threshold to $5 million for awarding multiple rail and public transportation architectural and engineering contracts in anticipation of forthcoming needs related to major projects. Jennifer Mitchell from DRPT is here and available to provide any additional details.
Thank you, Delegate. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, members of the committee. I'm Jennifer Mitchell, Director of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. As Delegate Carr mentioned, this will extend an exemption that currently does apply to VDOT for road construction projects in recognition of the somewhat unique nature of those projects, the risk assessments that we already go through with the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and the volume of reviews that will be required. We will be embarking on a bigger design and construction program over the next several years, and as such, we ask that you extend the same exemption to DRPT that exists with VDOT.
And,
Delegate.
Mr. Chairman, we need to move to add amendment in the nature of substitute.
Okay, we have an amendment in nature of substitute.
Mr. Chairman.
Council's passing out.
I believe
Moved
the
in second.
substitute has to do with semicolons and colons.
Oh, it's just some
Yes,
grammatical.
Mr.
Just some
Chairman.
grammatical work.
It just adds in a sub A and sub B to make the language read clearer in regards to information technology or rail or road or rail construction or design. That's a mouthful. So it just clarifies that grammatically.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions for the patron? Any further testimony? Okay, Delegate, you have the last word.
Thank you. I think it's been said.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion to report. Oh yeah, we have a letter from upstairs. We need to send this up to a probes.
Yes.
Then I'll move to report and refer.
Okay, we have a motion to report and refer. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Clerk will open the. Thank you very much. Yes, it passed 5-0. The clerk can close the roll. Thank you.
No. So that leaves, we need to hear from Delegates Rush, Delegate King, who asked his to be moved to next week, and Delegate Tran. That takes care of, we'll pass by for the day. Committee, motion for adjourn? Thank you. All in favor?